I looked at him and I said, "Are you trying to ask me if I'm a prostitute?" And he said, well, yeah. And I said, "No, I'm not a prostitute. Why would you think I'm a prostitute?" And he said, "Well, I'm I'm an old man and you're a young man and you're talking to me." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm not a prostitute. I'm just from Wisconsin."
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. Town Danceboutique was the largest gay dance club in Washington, D.C., and was open between 2007 to 2018. And it was really one of those mega clubs that you don't see much of anymore. So imagine split levels, multiple rooms, outside areas, video installations, LED lighting, and a stage area. I caught up with the wonderful singer-songwriter Tom Goss, who lived in DC for nigh on a decade and first happened upon town through Bear Happy Hour, one of the many nights run at the venue.
Well, it's really a couple different cities. I mean, there's the political city, and that has its own ecosystem. And frankly, I don't know much about that. I lived in DC for 10 years, and I didn't really fuck with politics, and I mostly dislike politics. So it wasn't really a sphere in which I was interested in being involved in, or that I was hustling to try to be a part of. Now, most people in DC are, or a lot of people in DC are. Um, there's a really kind of like very strong nonprofit community in DC too, that's trying to make the world a better place, and I was involved in that, and that was really great. The queer community is huge in DC. Everybody's gay in DC, and so I was also very involved in that. But it's also a city that's changed very dramatically over the past 15 years. And by the time I left DC, it wasn't the DC that I had grown to know and love. And that was a little difficult to watch. Mostly because new money came into town and gentrification, which of course I'm a part of. Look at me. I'm a
Mhm.
white middle class kid from Wisconsin. But it's a really wonderful city. It's a very small city. It's a very manageable city. It's like a combination of a big American city and a small sleepy southern town. It's kind of got both of those vibes happening.
And so how did you end up there?
I was going to be a Catholic priest, so I went to seminary in Washington D.C. I had grown up. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I went to school near Kansas City. And after college, I decided I was going to be a priest. And so I went to Catholic seminary and I joined a religious community. And that religious community had their training, for lack of a better term, in Washington, D.C. So I moved to Washington, D.C.
And so then how long were you doing that?
I was in seminary for a year and a half. Um, so I moved to Washington, D.C. to join seminary, and that lasted about a year and a half. I made it through what they call your novitiate year, and then I was in my first year of studies, and it was just a bad place. It was a real bad place for me.
Are you okay to talk about that?
I mean, sure, I talk about it all the time. Yeah, it would just, it, it it's hard at this point in time because that was shit 15 years ago. I'm honestly really grateful for it. The people in the community were not great, and I had a bunch. I had some people that wanted relationships with me, and different types of relationships with me that I wasn't interested in having with them, and that was hard. It, it was kind of a predatory place, and you know, all of the what do they say? There's always some sort of truth to a rumor or to a stereotype. I'm getting the saying wrong, but yeah, I mean, for me, it was a really really bad and unhealthy place and a predatory place, and so I left. And honestly, the truth is, I'm kind of grateful for it being what it was, because if it wasn't that, I'm a very stubborn and committed and loyal person. I probably would have spent 5, 6, 7, 10 years there had it not been such a horrendous experience.
And so where were you on coming to terms with your sexuality when you went on this journey?
Well, when I entered seminary, I wouldn't identify as gay. I think for me, I was identifying more as asexual than anything.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I wasn't interested in women, but I also wasn't interested in men, and part of it was the people that I hung out with. I wrestled through college, so I've always been an athlete, and so I've always, so even through college, I was showering with 60 guys a day. These are 18 to 22-year-old, really handsome Midwestern men with the fittest body you can imagine, like it's wrestling, and I wasn't attracted to any of them. I don't feel like I was hiding my sexuality. I just didn't understand it. For me, I'm attracted to men of size. I'm attracted to men in the bear community. And I just don't think that I knew that was something that I could do. The world doesn't tell you, hey, if you're looking for your sexual desires, why don't you look at that chubby guy over there? You
Mhm.
know, it's
Mm.
not, you don't see any representation of it in media or in entertainment. And it certainly wasn't something that I even knew. So when I entered seminary, I just didn't think I had that thing. That was part of the reason that I entered seminary, because um, the big sticking point for most people is celibacy. And I was already celibate and I didn't really have an interest in sex. So it seemed kind of a really easy fit for me. But I did, while I was there, I did come to a different understanding of my sexuality and realize that I was into, bears or chubs or however you want to call it. And, um, and that was a wonderful revelation for me, because being gay is hard sometimes, but being asexual was harder. I didn't know anybody who felt like I did. And at least when I was gay, I could be like, oh, these people feel like I do. And
Mm.
therefore I'm part of something and I can be understood. Whereas before I felt really like this alien.
Mm. Um, but then did you not, I mean, so this is me making massive assumptions, so please
Sure.
correct me. Did you not experience any kind of stigma for fancying bears?
I mean, sure, but I don't give a fuck. I mean, once you're gay, when you're gonna get a stigma for being gay, you're gonna be discriminated against for being gay. It's liking bears is hardly going to be.
Oh, sure, and maybe I haven't worded my question right, but I mean, like, when you met other gay people, was that ever a barrier?
I mean, I can't say that that there hasn't been instances where it is, especially in Los Angeles, especially in West Hollywood, especially in entertainment. But I don't, it's similar to what we were talking about earlier. I'm not interested in being inauthentic. Like, I'm interested in being who I am.
Mm,
And if you're not going to hang with me because my husband is a bear, well, great. Now I know that we shouldn't be friends,
mm,
It's not I've never really it's never really been a thing to me. I'm a weird dude, man. I'm a gay guy who plays an acoustic guitar and writes folk songs and likes bears and loved sports and couldn't care less about most of the things that gay people love. And if I spent my life trying to be what other people expected me to be, I would be very unhappy. And I
Mm.
think I've known that for most of my life.
Mm. And so then you left the seminary, and at that point you'd kind of come to terms with your sexuality. Well, sorry, like that's like you ever come fully to terms with your sexuality? That's like an ongoing thing. But like like for the purpose of this narrative, you'd come to terms with it, uh, and then was there ever a consideration of just leaving DC at that
Well,
point?
I did. I mean, I live in LA.
No, no,
Uh,
no. At that point, when you left the
yeah,
seminary, why did you stay?
that's a really interesting question. I mean, for me, it was kind of a freeing moment where I could do, when you go into seminary, you pretty much give up everything that you own.
Mm,
So I didn't own anything really. I I didn't have anything. I didn't have any connections, anything. I certainly didn't want to go back to Wisconsin, and I certainly, even more so, didn't want to go back to Missouri, um, which is where I went to college. And I started thinking about what did I want to do, and I had been doing things that were very heavy and intense, and I just decided that I wanted to make a record, and I was playing guitar and writing songs, and my songs were finally not shit. So I thought, like, I'm just gonna make a record that sounds fun, and I had a couple friends in DC that weren't in seminary that were also doing music, and that I felt like were really great people, and I felt like it was a community that I could build. And so I made a conscious choice, like, okay, DC is a place that I'm going to start building my life. And almost immediately after, I met my husband, and I mean, I probably met him 2 weeks after I left DC, and I mean, sorry, after I
okay.
left seminary, and then it was over. You know what I mean? It was like that was it, and that's part of the reason that some of this, that all of this, I don't really have a ton of feelings around it. Even though it was traumatic, like I say, it was traumatic, but I don't feel it was traumatic because I don't feel those things anymore.
Okay.
Uh, and that's because I met my husband and he healed me almost immediately. And I was so lucky to leave seminary and honestly, like, 2 weeks later, start building this wonderful life in which I have and
Wowzers.
still live. So it's like,
So anyone who's listening to this will know that I'm very cynical about all this mushy love shit. But did you just like meet him and just know?
no, I mean,
Oh,
it wasn't
okay.
like that. Like, I met him and really liked him, and then we hung out, and then we'd go on different dates, and we just had a lot of fun together. So we kept having fun together. And then it was like Christmas, and I went away, went home for Christmas, and then I had this trip to LA planned, and I did that, and I just missed him a lot. We had probably dated for 2 weeks, and then we went away for our respective holidays, and I just missed him a lot, and he missed me a lot, and then we came back and we started dating, and then by that point in time, yeah, in some ways it was kind of over. By the time it was April, it was probably, yeah, it was game set match.
Wow. Sorry.
Okay.
It's just like, when people are sure of anything, I'm like, how are you sure? Anyway, but that's my issue. That's not your issue. Now, so then at what point did you start going to town? Oh, and also just a question of clarity.
Sure.
If I call it Town Dance Boutique, does that mean I'm an out of towner and I have no idea what I'm talking about?
Uh,
Okay.
well, there was this really wonderful, you know, in retrospect, it was a really wonderful time to exist in Washington, D.C. There was a really, there's this whole bear bear movement and body positivity movement that is happening in the world right now, and it is wonderful to see. But I would say that the bear community in DC really was growing and so extremely strong, um, way before it was happening on the level that it was happening in other places. So I would say around 2010, I started hanging out at Bear Happy Hour, which is where there's this group in DC called the DC Bear Crew, uh, run by these guys, Charger and Scott, and they're super cool. And town wasn't even open yet. This was an event that was moving, from bar to bar.
Yeah.
As bars opened, as bars closed, and there was this new venue opening up called Town. And I'm not exactly sure of the dates, but I think it would be 2010, 2011, maybe even I don't think it would be 2012. My guess would be 2011. So Bear Happy Hour moved to town, and we started going to Bear Happy Hour, and we became really good friends with Scott and Charger. And it just became this place that when you think of a Bear Happy Hour, and what Bear Happy Hour was before town was, a dive bar, this like small dive bar. There's 10, there's 20, there's 30, maybe 50 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden town started opening early, because this is another reason maybe I didn't know about it, because I'm not really a late night guy. Town is one of those clubs that opens at like 9 or 10 or something like that, which at that point in time I'm like ready to go home. But they started opening early for Bear Happy Hour, I think at 5 and maybe 6, but I think it was even as early as 5 on a Friday. And Bear Happy Hour would go from 5 to 9, I think, when kind of the normal club kids started coming in around 9. They would open at 5, and this thing, which it was normally, and which is still most places, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, would be 1,500 bears and people who like bears and people that just wanted to like chill and have no drama and like eat pizza every Friday night. It turned into this really amazing, wonderful, loving, huge community. And that was Scott and Charger, and town is just such a wonderful space. And so you could come in for an hour, meet some friends, leave. You'd come in for 2 hours. You could stay the whole time. Like, it was really quite a wonderful place. And so they asked me, so then they started doing musicians. They started doing performances. It's a town is really a dance club and a drag club, really. And that's what they're known for. So they have stages, they have lights, they have all this really wonderful stuff. And they started doing performances. And so, Charger asked me if I wanted to do a performance. I said, yeah, let's do it. And the day before the performance, I was like, oh, I should write a song about bears for this Bear Happy Hour performance. It would be so fun. And I wrote this song called Bears.
So that inspired the song.
Yeah. So I wrote it for this one show, and people freaked out. And I think then the next day that weekend I went to this place called Easton Mountain for this music festival. There's a lot of bears that go there. I played it. They freaked out. Like, I just started playing it and everybody just loved it so much. And so we thought, wow, well, I guess we'll record this. And one of the guys who I had met at Bear Happy Hour, Rich Morrell, who's fucking brilliant producer, brilliant songwriter. He was doing a lot of this big bear dance party called Blow Off at the time with Rich Morrell, who's a big rock star, like Husker Du and Sugar, from the 90s. And they were doing this fucking amazing dance party. And so I met Rich through Bear Happy Hour, and then he produced the song, and it was just so much fun. And then we we made a music video, and of course we had to shoot at town. Town was such an integral part of the story of bears. And I think in retrospect, when I watched that video, it just makes me smile, because that video really captures what was going on in DC at that time. the really strong bear community, the huge bear community, the this is what happens. Like once something gets popular and cool, and there's people have been in it long enough, they start fighting with one another, right? The gay community as a whole is an example of that. Okay, now we're accepted. Okay, so now twinks need to fight with bears, and lesbians need to fight with gay people, and it's like, and it's fucking so stupid. We do this as soon as we become big enough to be assimilate, we start fighting within ourselves. And I think that was a really wonderful moment in DC. And again, props to Town, and props to Scott and Charger for really bringing like just such chill energy to it, where everybody just was getting along and everybody just was having a great time. And we shot that music video, and I didn't, there's some really big club scenes in that. And we opened up, we just shot at Town that opened up at like 5:00 on a Thursday. And I was like, I hope people show up, because that club is fucking huge. If like 70 people showed up that night, it would look horrible, And we showed up to shoot, and there was a line around the block, and I just was like,
oh, amazing,
so overwhelming, such an overwhelming amount of love and support in that community at that time. I mean, it's still there, but in a couple of years, there's going to be people that don't like that happy hour, and they start making their own happy hours, and then they're eating happy hours, and then you can't go to this happy hour, you got to go to this happy. There's like 5 bear happy hours every Friday night now. It's like it's ridiculous, but and that's fine. I mean, everybody should have their own space, as long as you're not being negative about the other person's space.
Yeah, and so let's like talking about this segregation, because I think it's really fascinating that when a community gets to a certain size, it starts splintering off in different ways. With the bear community itself, is there any subgroups within that?
Yeah, so many. Are you kidding me?
Oh, tell me. Tell me about it.
There's like bears, and then there's like chubs, and there's like super chubs.
Okay, so what's the difference between bear and chub?
Little bears. Honestly, it's. I would say my definition is you are what you say that you are. I think there has become kind of a it's hard, if you think of like a hierarchy of gay people, but like 22-year-old
pyramid, or is it?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about what that means in terms of power. You would be like some 22-year-old influencer muscle twink. You know what I mean? They would kind of be at the top of that. And it's not dissimilar in the bear community. There would be like, if you would create a hierarchy, the muscle bears would be on the top of that hierarchy. There would be the cool kids. And I think the further you look from that, the further away you look from that, the easier it is maybe for you to feel like you don't belong or ostracized. It's not dissimilar to high school. And it's just as ridiculous as high school.
So, yeah, and I'm not trying to validate it by talking about it. I suppose I'm just really fascinated that people do kind of splinter off into these groups, and I just wanted to understand more.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of human nature. I mean, if I hang out with my friends that are chubs and don't carry a lot of muscle and are just mostly chubby, they oftentimes don't feel like the bear community accepts them or wants them or loves them in that way.
But isn't that where the bear community sprung up from?
Yeah. I don't know why. I'm not saying it's logical. I'm just saying, see, it's ridiculous.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And because this whole muscle bear thing, it feels as like they're just appropriating that badge.
The muscle bear badge or the muscle badge? I mean, it's all
the bear badge, because as far as I understood, the bear community arose as a rejection of this hyper polished looking hairless stereotype of a gay male, rejecting that and saying like, no, actually, we're just kind of regular men, and this is how we look, and we like to look hairy, and we like to have normal bodies. And it feels like the muscle bears have come in and been like, oh yeah, I've got body hair, I'm going to steal that terminology for myself.
Sure, like I have some I'm a little fat, but I have muscle, and you're fat, you're more fat. Like it's I don't, just it's so very ridiculous to me.
And I love it. I love that there are otters. And what's the other one? Oh, pups, that's something different, isn't it?
Cubs.
Cubs. Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting to me because, for me, I make a lot of visual content. And it's very important when I create my visual content. Again, authenticity is important to me. It's important that I cast people that I think are beautiful. And so I'm never going to be like casting a twink as my love interest because, first of all, they have enough jobs. And that's not really where the kind of man that I desire. So I want to be honest about that. And you'll oftentimes see, actually, you probably won't see it. Now that I'm mentioning it, nobody will see it because I delete comments so much. People will comment like, oh, those guys aren't bears. They are just fat. Or they'll say really mean.
Wow.
And I delete that stuff all the time because fuck that. I don't want that negativity. And I don't believe it to be true. And I'm not going to get into an argument about it. Like if you want to talk about your tastes and your beauty, then go ahead and make your own song and make your own video. That's great, but don't trash other people.
It's so fascinating because who, like, this whole thing about commenting, because like who actually thinks that we give a shit about your opinion? Like
every single person in the world.
Go away. Oh, like, obviously I take that back if someone has something nice to say, but like if you've just got something that's kind of like kind of shady, kind of petty, like why do you feel the need to comment? It's really odd.
I don't know. It's sad. I mean, I don't know why we feel like, and I think our community generally really values meanness and cattiness, and we encourage it in a lot of ways, and I'm not sure that it's always healthy.
Do you think it's like oh god, let's not try and psychoanalyze people. No, let's just step away from that conversation.
Okay,
let's go back to town. So town really helped kind of accelerate this consolidation of the bear community.
Absolutely. And I think, we talked about the splintering off into different bear happy hours, but the truth is, once town closed, when there's 1,500 people showing up every single week, the town was massive.
So talk to me about like what is the venue like? So you walk through the front door.
It was a warehouse. It was just this huge warehouse that was 2 stories, and eventually they even built an outdoor patio, so you could probably have 300-400 people outside before you even could fit. I don't know what the capacity is. I'm not sure, but it was crazy huge, and exposed bricks and great lights and great sound and just a great low-key vibe that made you feel comfortable. And once they built the patio, it was just like all these places to sit and a bar out there, and it was just like and the thing that was really fun too is the thing they did for Bear Happy Hour was, I think it was $5 pitchers. Now I don't drink, so forgive me. I never once bought a drink there. I can't believe that.
You're the reason they closed.
I'm the reason they closed. No, it was really like, because all the neighborhoods changed so quickly. But you drank out of a pitcher. They had these, everybody, like, it was super, super faux masculine. I mean, it was sometimes masculine, but they're all gay guys. So you're playing off a stereotype. And everybody was holding a pitcher full of beer and just drinking out of a pitcher. Like, it was so much fun. And they would deliver like 50 pizzas at 7 o'clock. And then like all the bears would take their pictures and walk up to the pizza and like eat the free pizza. And like, it was so much fun.
So not only did you not buy drinks, you took free pizza.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I went to that club, probably 50 times for Bear Happy Hour and probably spent, $20. So now that I'm saying it out loud, I kind of feel bad.
No, but like genuinely, it is really hard when you don't drink alcohol because you can't drink that many Cokes without like just getting on a sugar high. So I'm totally with you.
Yeah, I mean, I
would
just kind of sip on water. I definitely bought some waters too. I mean,
it's okay. You don't need to. So let's talk about Bear Happy Hour. What would I expect if I went, apart from pizza?
Just like a huge warehouse full of dudes, and everybody kind of like open to having a conversation. Like early, if you were there at like 6:30, you could just a bunch of spatterings of people and you could join any conversation that you wanted to. If it was more closer to 8, then you can packed bodies, everybody all the time. You couldn't move through that crowd without somebody grabbing your shoulder and hugging you and saying like, "Oh, it's great to see you. Oh, hey, what's up? I've seen you around before. What's your name?" It was very friendly. It was very much like small town gay America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how do you think they achieved that kind of small town? Because DC's not a small town, really. How do you think they achieved that vibe?
I think again it started with Scott and Charger and Town. Like, I don't think they ever were trying to be anything but what they were. They were like, we are just a bunch of dudes who want to see our friends, and that's it. And we want our friends to feel comfortable. We want to create an atmosphere which they would think is fun and comfortable. And for bears, oftentimes it's just a beer and pizza. So if you can transpose the kind of familialness of being amongst friends in your living room and having some beer and playing a video game or watching TV or watching a movie and having a pizza, like, honestly, when we think about the moments that are so fun to them, that's it. We're just hanging out with our friends in a place we feel comfortable, having a good conversation, and having some good food and drink. And that's all that they did. They didn't make it super fancy. They didn't try to sell you something that you didn't want to buy. They just created a familial atmosphere.
And so, like, was there any, other than yourself, of course, was there any entertainment, like drag or performances?
Yes. Again, Town is really a drag and a club bar. So the drag happened every single Friday, immediately after Bear Happy Hour. This is really, in some ways, pre drag race too. Like, it was the very beginnings of it.
Yeah.
But every single drag race performer has performed at Town. They would occasionally have, maybe I would say like once a month, they would have performers. So that would be like, me or Big Dipper or, other people that were doing things in the bear space. I'm trying to think of who they were, but I'm drawing a little bit of a blank, but that's okay. Yeah, there was a downstairs and an upstairs. Oh, and they started doing karaoke. So the upstairs was the whole huge warehouse, and that's where there would be like 1,000 people, right? But then downstairs there was another club, which is where the drag happened and where the performing happened. It was really designed for performing, and that was probably like a 300 capacity space. And so down there is where the performances would be. So you could go to the performances and you could go upstairs and talk to your friends, go down to the performance. Like, it was kind of like just this casual thing that was always moving. And then for a long time, they were also doing karaoke. So
yes, and I want to ask about this.
Yeah, so if you weren't if there wasn't a performance, then there would be people singing karaoke, and it was just like all this little low key fun. Like none of it was full of pressure. None of it. Everything was fun.
So then, like, you know, the obvious question for me to ask now is, what is your song of choice for karaoke?
Honestly, I didn't sing karaoke that much. But my song,
Why?
my song of choice for karaoke is these days has been what's the name of that song? This hitting that ice cold, that gel fire for that white gold. This one for the hood girls, them good girls, straight masterpieces. Who is that? Styling, wilding, living it up in the city. Got Chuck Stone, no Sailor on.
Oh, is it Uptown Funk?
Yeah, Uptown Funk.
Okay,
Fuck
okay.
I just like doing fun stuff. You know, for me, there's so many guys who get up there, guys or gals, and they're singing like the slowest ballad you've ever heard.
God, so dreary. Even though I'm a performer, I'm fucking terrified of karaoke. I just hate it so much. But I have this, like, if I ever opened my own karaoke bar, which, you know, the likelihood is not high, I would make sure all the songs finished after 1.5 minutes, because no one wants to sit through the whole thing.
I think if it's fast, people do. I mean, the great thing about Uptown Funk for me is that, like, I can jump around on stage and there's a call and response, and people, you know, people get into it, you know. And I think, like,
But if it was a boring performer, like, you need a contingency plan.
Agreed. I think if I was opening a karaoke bar, it would be all fast songs. It'd be like 1,000 songs, 4 ballads, and you can only.
You want to sing "My Heart Will Go On"? We've only got the version that's in 160 BPM. Sorry. Go.
Yeah, that's
all right, cool. So is this a business idea that we need to discuss more?
Yeah, sure.
that was convincing.
Karaoke bar. I mean, I just do the dumb. You know, I'll do hip hop, all this stuff. Like whatever is gonna make me look stupid and is gonna get a laugh. I'm down for.
And so if we move away from Bear Happy Hour for a moment, sorry to do that. Did you ever go to town on any other nights?
Once or twice. Not really. And I would probably say that the majority of the people that went to Bear Happy Hour did not go any other nights, because it was a very, very different crowd. So if there's 1,500 people a week, you're talking about 10,000 people that are running through there, you know, every couple months, right? Because it's not the same people every single week. And I would say that almost all of them never went to town at any other time. And I mean, I have friends in the music industry, so sometimes they'd be spinning. They'd be like, because it's like dance club, and so I'd go at midnight to town and check out their set and like dance and stuff like that, or a drag show. But it was honestly kind of hilarious because around 9:00, if you stood at the door, because now there was a line because there was a cover. If you went to Bear Happy Hour, there was no cover, but you would see like 40-year-old men in half open flannels and graphic tees, all bearded and a little tipsy, walking out, and lines of 20-year-old twinks in tank tops and glittery outfits and Daisy Dukes waiting to get in. Like the two demographics couldn't have been much different, and it was very interesting to watch.
But okay, so what happens then when you're at a bear night and someone who's attracted to bears but isn't a bear goes? Are they set upon?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's me, right? You're describing me. I'm pretty oblivious to flirting, I guess. So I guess it depends on who you are. I wouldn't say that, but maybe it's true. Maybe I'm just dumb and I don't see it. And that could totally be the case. I also, I'm also from Wisconsin, and I'm very, very friendly, And so I think people think I'm flirting on them all the time. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody, I think people are probably hitting on me and think I'm hitting on them. But mostly I had this really funny interaction at 440, which is a bear bar in San Francisco, where I was up there for a show and I was talking to this guy and he started asking me this really strange series of questions. And I realized at some point that I looked at him and I said, "Are you trying to ask me if I'm a prostitute?" And he said, well, yeah. And I said, "No, I'm not a prostitute. Why would you think I'm a prostitute?" And he said, "Well, I'm I'm an old man and you're a young man and you're talking to me." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm not a prostitute. I'm just from Wisconsin." Like, we talk to everybody, and I think that was what was great about the Bear Happy Hour vibe, is it kind of had that Midwest, really laid back vibe. Like, everybody just talked to everybody. I'm sure that there was somebody who walked in and a lot of people hit on him, but I think everybody was more just happy that the week was over, happy to see their friends. And if they went there and they found somebody to go home with, they were like happy about that. But if they didn't, they certainly found someone to go to dinner with. They found a group of friends to go to dinner with after. It's a win-win.
That is a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends what you're having for dinner, I suppose. And so, do you remember hearing about the venue closing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was a big thing, and they announced it for like a year. Like, they knew about it for like a year.
What was the reason?
It's really just neighborhood gentrification, really. Like, I think the owner of the building is turning it into a condo. There's probably a huge condo. Yeah. That was really the whole neighborhood was just going up in these big, modern condos, and they could make more money on the, making it a condo than they could at town, regardless of how successful town was. It wasn't that town was always super successful from the jump. But yeah, I mean, the neighborhood just changed so drastically. And that's really what it was.
And so when you heard about it closing, what was your reaction?
Well, I had a final show there. I was very sad. We came back and we knew it was closing. You knew the date that it was closing. So I talked to Charger and Scott, and we set up a final performance, and I went there and I had a performance, and I hung out at Bear Happy Hour, and I gave a lot of people hugs, and yeah, I mean, talking about it now, I'm getting kind of emotional. Like, I want to cry a little bit. It was such a wonderful, wonderful space, and such a wonderful group of men that went to that space.
And so what's happened then to the bear community in DC? Do you know?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, so Charger and Scott moved their Bear Happy Hour about a block away to this bear bar called Uproar. And so the DC Bear Happy Hour is now happening at Uproar. There was another Bear Happy Hour that splintered about a year before town closed on the east side of town at this place called Rock and Roll Hotel. There was a Bear Happy Hour that opened up at the Eagle, but I just saw that the Eagle permanently closed. So there was a lot of Bear Happy Hours that it splintered into. But when I've gone back after town is closed, I've gone to Uproar and seen Charger and Scott and all that. But again, you're going from a warehouse to a dive bar, so the vibe's really different.
Mm-hmm. So if you could go back one last time, what would you do?
What would I do? I would give a lot of hugs. That's really what I would do. I would like breathe in the moment of the thing. I think the thing about I think the thing about the places and the people that are most influential to you sometimes is that you don't know they are more influential to you, the most influential to you until it's gone. Um, and so now that it's gone, I feel so grateful to to have made Bears and to have made that music video and to have a visual representation and have been able to capture that energy of that thing that was so amazing, because that video really captures the energy of the people there. All the people in that video I met at Bear Happy Hour, every single one except my husband, are from that Bear Happy Hour days. And so if I could go back, I would just go back with the reverence of knowing that this is a magical thing in a magical place. And you don't know it because you think every place is like it. But I've gone around the world now, and I've gone to so many Bear events, and nothing compares to what that was.
Did you ever go to Town Danceboutique? Well, if you did, I want to hear all about it. Send me a message, hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, yada, yada, yada. My username is KAndersonMusic. Find me there and tell me the gossip. Let me know what you did and who you did it with, obviously. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I've been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, which is called Well Groomed Boys, playing underneath my talking right now on all good streaming platforms. If you like this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on Apple Podcasts, or just told people who you think might be interested in having a little listen to. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.